Okay, it says it's starting.
Cool. So yeah, so you guys, everything's recording the way it would be.
Okay,
That switcher screen that you were talking about, Katie, that's where you can choose which camera angle you want to be active recording. Lately, we've just been leaving it on the council row. But yeah, everything should be recording at this point. And as long as you turn on the audio equipment, then everything should be picked up through the audio as well.
okay. I think audio's on. Mine is.
And you might just double check the battery in that wireless microphone just to make sure it's, I think the light should be green, and then if it's red, that means it's running out of juice.
Okay.
Should be good.
No, I think we're good.
Cool. Well, I'll leave it on my end too. I'll keep an eye on it. And if you guys do have any issues, obviously you can call me or text me.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick.
Cool. Yeah. Have a good meeting.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Who else do we have on
Here they come.
there? Okay. Hey.
David, Kristen, Kelly, you, Josh, Brent.
What's happening?
Steve, I think we're ready for you.
I'm getting quite an echo here. Is that just my system?
No, I'm here.
So I think we're good now. Steve?
Yep, that sounds reasonable. Are we all gathered and ready to begin?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, jumping in, I hear you've all had a copy of the master plan report and had a chance to review it, so I won't bother reading it back to you. But at a quick, just high-level overview in reviewing the town's wastewater collection and treatment systems, the collection systems look to be in relatively good shape as far as capacity to convey the flows to the treatment plant throughout the intended planning period for the next 20 years. And the treatment plant is performing as it was designed and intended to do. And it's doing pretty well, and maintenance has been kept up on all the appropriate systems. There's a couple of upcoming state regulations that are going to impact treatment plants as far as nutrient removal requirements. And I think the more pressing issue that was identified through this study is the potential impacts of unwanted inflow and infiltration into the collection system, which is bringing to break that down real quick, inflow is referring to the running in of surface water through openings, being that say manhole lids, other appurtenances that reach the surface. Infiltration is intended to refer to groundwater that's making its way into the system through cracks in manholes, through gaskets in pipes that may not be sealing perfectly, cracks in pipes. It's amazing how resilient plant roots can be, and given time, they will find their way through a perfectly good gasket. And any other crack, plant roots will find a way in there for all that good water and nutrition that they can get out of sewer systems. So that is a never-ending battle with any collection system, is controlling that I&I. And that's one of the biggest hurdles that my team identified in going through this study for the town, is that if the I&I isn't brought under control, the town could be looking at a expansion to the wastewater treatment capacity just to be able to handle that groundwater that comes in. And it's very related to irrigation season and all the ditches that crisscross town. It's very noticeable that flow comes up throughout the entire irrigation season and then drops off at the end, which is different from some other regional clients that I work with. I've done a lot of collection system monitoring for the groups over in Pagosa Springs and some of the others in the region as well. And what we see in most of the mountain towns is spring runoff will actually cause them, a number of regional plants actually will exceed their 80% allowable flow capacity for spring runoff. And the state's fairly tolerant of that, within reason. With Bayfield, with this being a whole summer long thing, it puts it into a different category as far as how the state's going to view that. So that really ended up being the most important takeaway as far as things that should potentially be improved within the system. And throughout the report and the recommendations, it's a very collaborative process between my team and the town staff to see what made sense to everyone and what is the best path forward. And there's been some continuation of that discussion even after this PDF was put together and sent out. I was completing this report just at the end of Chris LeMay's tenure, and then Katie came on, and so Katie
Jeremy could probably kind of chime in on this as well, because I'm certain that he would probably have the better answer, given that he has data. Throughout the entire system, is there, through your monitoring efforts, have you been able to determine whether or not the infiltration is system-wide or basically in a particular spot?
There has not been regular CCTV inspections of the system in about 6 years. So much of the data was much of the information was based on that older data. And based on that older data, there is an understanding that the worst area is actually in the central downtown area, and not so much coming from the north side of the highway. That is one thing that's addressed in the report, is a recommendation to try to find a more regular cycle of this televising and cleaning, because it's an important inspection process to identify where there are issues in the collection system. Because as I mentioned a few weeks ago, those tree roots are trying to get in there all the time. And so just because a section of pipe was in perfect shape 5 years ago doesn't mean that it is today. Jeremy, do you have something to add?
No, I would agree with Steve on that. One thing that I would say is that from the 2014 camera inspection that the town performed internally, we have a really good idea, I think, of where we could spend some of those funds and kind of try and pinpoint specific areas from the older study. Really, I think to get the most, I guess, the most bang for your buck as far as for the new CCTV inspection. And I think that might be a good place to start.
What kind of time considerations in terms of help do you have to do these CCTV inspections? My recollection is it's not a real fast process.
It is not a fast process. It's very time consuming, and I actually don't know off the top of my head what a reasonable linear foot per day is for a CCTV crew. Can you help there, Jeremy?
It just really depends on the conditions. I mean, quite frankly, if your flows are down during the workday, you may be able to get, a little bit more footage, camera, and I don't know, it'd be hard to say not knowing the exact conditions or the flow ratios and the time of day that was performed. But I think looking forward with the plan that Steve's outlaid for the collection system, I think we could really look at kind of trying to, break out some sections of town that we know are identified, especially the older portions, and, looking back at some of the previous study, and try and really break that down and come up with a feasible study to see if we can't impact some of this I&I moving into the plants. One other thing I'd like to point out is we started providing the historic infos to you guys with Public Works staff report on a monthly basis, and we did provide at the last meeting an annual chart showing those inflows for the last 3 years, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And if you take a look at those, you can really see that during that irrigation season, those flows are upwards towards that 80 percentile ratio, but they haven't quite met it. So, I mean, there's still time for this to be considered, but I think in looking at the downtown area would be my recommendation for a starting point. If we could see maybe going through that, doing the CCTV inspection and getting a full report from a third party, and then addressing some of those lines,
Is there a methodology? Go ahead, Kelly.
Would you anticipate doing slip seal this year?
Yes, the hope is to put something together this year, maybe not for construction. My understanding is to be able to get a study together and then identify some future projects, moving forward. And I think from the 2014 study that was done internally, the downtown area is where we'd like to start.
Is there a way of monitoring flows in the downtown area through the manholes without having to go through the CCTV process, so that we can kind of look and see right now what a baseline flow is, because we know right now that it's not going to be running much yet. When we turn the water on there in May, then we're going to see probably pretty quickly an increase in the water volumes that are moving through the system. And if we can have if there's a place where we can view it, then that might give us a quick idea of where we want to focus our energies and efforts moving forward.
There are some potential benefits to that approach, and there are a few different brands of available temporary insert flow meters for doing collection system monitoring, just like you were describing there. And it can be a benefit, but it also has its limits. With those flow meters, you can kind of get an idea of what's coming down the pipe. And that can be a benefit in terms of helping you figure out which branches to maybe focus on, sooner than later. But eventually, you do need to get to a point of inspecting the entire system on a regular basis. And the other flip side of using those flow meters is, while they can tell you, okay, go look at this branch, you still need to go do that CCTV inspection so that you can figure out where to actually place the repairs.
I understand that.
So they can work well together. And just so everyone knows, my company does have a number of those flow meters. It's something that I do regularly for the town of Pagosa, and we do have some extra flow meters.
And that's where we have based on what spring funding
there's only two right now, is that correct?
That water table will continue to travel down your collection system, and it might find a new way in. So that is, one of the things that was identified through the previous study was more a need to address leaks at service tap connections than on the actual collection piping itself. And that's something that Jeremy and Katie and I have talked about a bit, and Katie has suggested a few changes to the report that will get made to help address those options. But it's one thing we do suggest in the report is to try a limited section of, I've forgotten what number we put out, I think it was around 30. And as you mentioned earlier, David, that would be a good instance to use one of those flow meters and help quantify what flow did you have dry season and irrigation season before the repairs are made. And then if you invest in making repairs in a certain area, can you then quantify that you got a return on your dollar investment with that flow down?
But just looking at a map of the system, it would seem that it would be pretty easy to determine which manhole you would want to put a flow meter in. There's only, I'd have to look at a map a little tighter that has all the manholes delineated, but it does look like it is.
Yeah, you definitely could look at one of those maps and install a metering device in a manhole that would give you a really clear representative of that portion of the collection system that, one, you were determining to make repairs, and then two, for after the fact. I think that's actually a really good idea.
Any other questions? So yeah, we did, I'm just looking back at the report while we're talking, and we did recommend a pilot project in the downtown area that may be worth looking at in terms of future repairs. And I know that there's some potential to look at how those repairs are completed. So I believe currently the homeowners are responsible for their service taps down to the main collection pipe. And so it becomes a challenge to encourage homeowners to make repairs to their service tap, especially when that's out underneath the town street, the town sidewalk. There are trenchless technologies that can go in and slip line that service tap, potentially looking at items within the municipal code to help encourage homeowners to make those repairs or to work out some form of a, I don't know, cost sharing is the right word to apply here. In terms of compelling that to move forward.
Just allowing essentially cost to be, for a repair to be extended out over a period of time. You know, if you're talking about slip lining in some of these older service, is that even possible if those service lines collapse? To the extent that they're more oval as opposed to this round?
If they're too collapsed, it probably does become an issue. Jeremy, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's what we're, kind of really our approach to the CCTV inspection, to get something in there. There's a lot of different, options that you have for those repairs. And if you're running into something where you have a lot of collapsed lines, maybe you wanna use a different technique such as, pipe bursting, or some of those other, less invasive processes moving forward. And I really think once you get a good handle and a good study with some CCTV repairs, a lot of these companies can do multiple different processes. And so maybe you do contract out and use multiple different strategies to really improve the health of your collection system.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense to me. We generally can't slip line collapsed lines or lines that are too far from round. But as Jeremy pointed out, there are a number of options on the market.
My concern there, or I guess the question there is more towards the smaller service lines, which typically are 3-inch. Every now and then, I know mine's a 4-inch, which is unusual. Okay, so the 3-inch. And my understanding is that unless you're, that the normal CC technology that we have, CCTV technology we're utilizing, doesn't necessarily fit down at 3-inch long.
It's true. And the previous study that identified the sewer tap issues was all done with a traditional mainline CCTV camera that was mounted simply going out with a small push camera that would reach into the service lines.
And I think that just based on what I'm reading is that my concern is more about the service line connections than it is our collection system per se.
That was the general takeaway from the previous study, and that information was carried forward into this one. A lot of times your real issue is generally not 20 feet up that service line, but right where that service line connects to the main line. That's your most common source of trouble.
When Buck Highway was rebuilt, I watched, well, this was, missed opportunity there with that to replace the significant length of sewer line around the Square Street, which is going to happen now. But at that point in time, virtually every tap down the hill was cut. And so there was repair done for the whole end of the line. But that repair didn't necessarily take care of the infill, or the infiltration piece being observed coming down that line. I mean, photographs I have clearly show that those are running a lot more water than you would normally expect to see in the sewer.
That's good to know. I don't remember hearing about
Do we have any other questions from anyone on the board for Steve?
Katie's got the bad echo.
Go ahead, repeat that.
Could you guys hear me? I think we're trying to get that fixed.
That is quite the echo, but yeah, I think the general takeaway is, the lift stations that you have are in relatively good shape. We did look at an option, to add an intermediate lift station that would help, reduce the, pumping requirements from the Gem Village lift station. That one currently runs 2 pumps in series to generate the required head to move that fluid all the way back over the hill and into downtown. And that particular lift station does give the operations staff regular headaches, for lack of a better description. So that was one location that we did look at based on staff direction to see if there was an option. And we did find that there's a potential to put a new lift station near the intersection of Bayfield Parkway and Highway 160. They're on the west edge of town. And that also, that's all still very theoretical, but it has potential to tie in with I think it was the Heartwood development that was recently asking about inclusion. And so there is, potential for that development to help push that particular lift station option into reality. Aside from, that, two of the 4 existing lift stations have received pump replacements in the last couple of years. And, overall things are in good shape. The plant has received its appropriate maintenance and had some, I think it was the influence screen that was undergoing its regular maintenance as the report was being written. So overall systems are in good shape. The major recommendation is to focus on I&I, and I think as we've discussed here, a collaborative effort of some flow monitoring and CCTV inspections could really help identify where to target those efforts. And that then a pilot study to help evaluate options and, determine that, if you fix, say, 25, 30 taps or whatever issues are identified to be repaired, that you can quantify a return on your investment that you really were able to reduce flow within that part of the system.
So,
At this point, is there one thing that within this capital improvements list that we should probably look at first over another?
Personally, I would, it'd be a combination of the CCTV and depending on the outcome of the CCTV, whether it's the pilot study that we identified in the report as far as I&I repairs or some other alternate pilot study that becomes identified through renewed CCTV inspection. But on the flip side, I think it's also worth keeping your eyes open towards 2027 and just trying to be aware and at least have a mindset of preparedness that there are going to be plant upgrades to meet the nutrient requirements coming down the pipe. But that's about half a decade away, and I think for now the focus I would recommend is CCTV and I&I repairs.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet, thank you. Any other questions?
so can you hear me? Can I get a thumbs up from somebody? No.
You guys can't hear Katie?
They can't hear you?
Can you guys hear me at all?
No.
Great.
Happen every time. So. Crap. Why can't they hear us?
No. I just turned that one down. That's what makes that noise.
I wonder if they have their computers too close together.
No.
So, can anybody hear us? No.
Can you guys hear us at all? Give us a thumbs up.
That's weird.
Seems possible. That echo usually comes from having multiple microphones active.
Right. I wonder if it's the microphones in that room.
We've never had that problem before.
Is that because that computer's down, right?
The computer is
I bet
evolved.
that's the case.
For heaven's sakes. They can't hear Ashley. They can't
At all.
They can't hear us at all. Dang Patrick. No, I got it.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, not good. The people on Zoom cannot hear us, and we're speaking into the microphone.
Okay. So, I mean, you have the PA system turned on. Do you need to turn it up?
No, I didn't change anything. I mean, I can turn that one back up. That
Turn
one
it back up,
It's up high now.
up high. Can anybody hear us? Thumbs up. No, they can't hear us.
Okay, well, as far as audio goes, the only things I've ever touched on there have been the, that PA, the black box,
Right.
and then the wireless microphone.
Well, if we turn off the wireless microphone, we have all the static. Yeah, we can hear it through the system. It is, so it is up, the problem is that, so I'm gonna try to unmute this thing, so I'm seeing here so can you hear me now?
You can hear us now?
Alright.
That's fine.
We're trying. We just had so much feedback.
Okay, we had a lot of feedback here earlier, we're still getting feedback, so, alright, well,
Like static over the,
yeah. Can you hear it?
no, I can't hear it.
Okay.
That was happening the other day too. We'll have to look into that. That I do not know what's causing that.
All right, we're getting
It
this
sounds
figured
like
out,
you guys
guys.
had
Sorry
problem
about that.
before, so, anyways, I'll let you get back to your meeting. But
Okay.
the static may be unavoidable tonight.
Thanks, bye.
Okay, bye.
So, can you hear us? There's no good.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. We're having some major problems here, and I'm sorry, we don't necessarily know what's going on, so.
I just want to say, I want the board to take it upon themselves once things calm down and maybe the weather gets a little warmer, but to take a tour of our facilities if you haven't done that yet. Sorry, Jeremy, I'm going to have them hit you up for an appointment to go tour the facilities, but it's quite impressive, and I think it helps make a lot of this make a little more sense, too.
And you know, that's totally fine. Most days we can schedule in an hour or so, is about really all it takes to walk through. I know Trustee Black has been through, the sewer plant, I don't think that I got, the opportunity to take you to the water plant. But, the perspective of these Fridays are really good days, or any time if you guys want to do these, you know, we can make it appropriate or ready for this. And go ahead and walk you through and kind of get a gist of what we have going on. And, you know, maybe it might be helpful to see, you know, the size of the capacity of some of these pumps. I know you see us coming in, we're asking for $15,000, $30,000, and, some of these pumps that we use to, convey the water and wastewater for the town are massive. You know, so we're serving a large population, and, anytime that fits in your schedule, we normally can make work with, the public works department.
So the question I had, Steve, is that there were some edits that I had suggested, and you were going to reword those. I'm sorry, I have not seen your latest edit, or if those were edited.
I have not gotten those changes incorporated at this time,
All right,
but I will get them in there and get that back to you.
all right. If you're ready to move on, then
Okay, so do we want to remove that from the agenda?
you can, yeah. Yeah, because I'd like to see the final.
Okay, if everyone's ready, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, dated January 19th, 2021. It is 7:19. Roll call, please.
Trustee Black.
Here.
Trustee Dallison. Here. Trustee Joswick.
Here.
Trustee Moreland.
Here.
Trustee Politis.
Here.
Trustee Cesaro.
Here.
And Mayor Tarkington.
Here.
All present.
All right, if we could all say the pledge together. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any conflicts of interest that we want to disclose at this time? I will be recusing myself from 5D on the agenda. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to general public input. If you have anybody from the audience has anything to say, not related to the agenda, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Go ahead and say your name and address for the record. All right. Seeing none, moving on. Did everybody get a chance to look at the agenda? We're going to remove what was that? 5B from the
5B.
agenda.
I would make a motion 5B removed from the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee Dallison.
Yes.
Trustee Joswick.
Yes.
Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Politis.
Yes.
Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington.
Yes.
All in favor.
Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes from January 5th, 2021? If so, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee Dallison.
Yes.
Trustee Joswick.
Yes.
Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Politis.
Yes.
Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
And Mayor Turkington.
Yes.
All in favor?
All right, moving on to department reports. Becky, do you have anything to add to your report?
No, nothing to add.
Does the board have any questions for Becky at this time? Seeing none, moving on. Kathy, do you have anything to add to your report?
I do not.
All right, does the board have any questions for Kathy? All right, moving on. Jennifer, do you have anything to add to your report? All right, does the board have any questions for Jennifer? All right. Moving on to our financial agenda items, the 2020 midterm audit update. Jennifer.
So we got our midterm audit back, and maybe there was a few clerical things. There was about 7 or 8, suggested journal entries to be made, and then there's just minor things, a couple of them were just, small items that the auditor missed. Anyway, prior audit, that happened. And then there was, a couple of items that have already been adjusted by myself prior to the interim audit that we caught. And then just small, minor things, but the biggest thing that the auditor, there was nothing major, there was nothing, fraudulent, what we didn't expect, and mainly she pointed out, she noticed there was a lot of invoices that had came from, August and September, and we feel that at this point that we are on road and that we have done all that product. Later on as well, and feel good about it, and will help to move on to the final year audit. That's all I really have, unless anybody has any questions.
Katie, do you have anything to add, or does the board have any questions about the midterm audit?
I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. The December 2020 financial statements, those will be presented in February. Unless the board has any questions at this time, we will move on to Planning Commission. All right, do we have any general public input pertaining to Ordinance 451? I don't see anybody from the public on there, do we?
Ron Donovan,
Ron.
and I have an iPhone, but I don't know who that is. So.
Okay, moving on to Ordinance 451, RV parks and campgrounds.
So the Planning Commission spent quite a few meetings working on this, and they did their own research, and so they brought back information from some of the more national and Colorado RV park associations, and this is what their final decision was. So this was modified, not modified. This was taken from their adopted language and drafted into a resolution for your consideration.
Board have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve Ordinance 451. Do I have a second? We have a second. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Can I ask-
Yes.
Sorry. We get to review any, of the RV parks or campgrounds that would like to be set up in the town prior to their, getting set up, is that correct?
Yes.
That is not correct. Use by review is approved by the Planning Commission, and once the Planning Commission approves that, then that is that use by review. That there's action to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. So there is a public hearing.
That piece of it at all, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, Brenna, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah,
I said, this doesn't change that part of it at all, though. That was already there and in place.
That's correct. That is your use by review process.
Okay, thank you.
all right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any further comments or questions? Roll call.
Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee Dallison.
Yes.
Trustee Joswick. Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Politis.
Yes.
Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
And Mayor Tarkington.
Yes.
All in favor.
All right, moving on to old business action agenda. Do we have any general public input pertaining to agenda items 5A, C, or D? Seeing none, we'll move on to the TRC waterline change order number 4.
So plumber, Steve Omar was just on the Zoom, and he has sent this to us for our approval. We're asking for your approval on this change order number 4. It increases the contract by $102,900, which is still under the engineer's initial estimated cost.
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that TRC change order number 4 be approved.
Second that?
All right, any further questions or comments? Roll call.
Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee Dallison.
Yes.
Trustee Joswick.
Yes.
Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Politis.
Yes.
Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
And Mayor Tarkington.
Yes.
All in favor.
All right, moving on to 5C, to appoint Josh Joswick as our Southwest TPR representative.
I will let Trustee Black and Trustee Joswick have that discussion if they asked me to put this on the agenda.
I have been serving as the TPR representative. Josh has done in the past and is willing to step up and do it again. I'm happy to share those duties. He's actually served as TPR chair, which is a step up for me. I know he's familiar with the process and he'd be a good addition. Step right in and have a
All right, thank you, Josh. Does the board have any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Josh Joswick to the Southwest TPR representing the town of Bayfield.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Black.
yes.
Trustee Dallison.
Yes.
Trustee Joswick.
Should I abstain
Can he
from this, or should I
vote?
vote?
I don't know.
I don't see any reason why you can't vote, but your attorney is also on the line, on Zoom.
Yeah, Josh, I think your sense on that is good. Why don't you just abstain?
Okay. Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Politis.
Yes.
Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington.
Yes.
All in favor.
All right, moving on to agenda item 5D. I will be stepping out of the room. Trustee Dallison, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor Darkington. Pre-annexation request for the Whitman Gym Village property.
Yeah, this is property basically does not have a sewer tap. It's commercial and agricultural. It looks like the commercial does not require a sewer tap. So we are recommending approval of this pre-annexation. We'll send the documents to the owners. And at the time when they determine that the commercial would require sewer tap, we would require sewer tap as well. But right now, they're just asking for the water service.
motion that we approve the pre-annexation request for parcel number 5677-161-00-005 for the Whitmans.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, let's get a roll call.
Trustee Black.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dallison. Trustee Joswick. Trustee Moreland. Trustee Politis. And Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay, moving on to our new business, Resolution 479, our social media policy.
Yes, I thought it was very important at this juncture to make sure that we have a social media policy that we provide transparency to the public. This basically lets the public know how we're managing and monitoring the Facebook page. I'm also will be drafting a social media policy for employees and how they manage social media, and we just received a CD for social media for employees so that they also can watch information about how their job could be related to what they post on social media. So this is currently transparency for the public, and when we remove or hide comments, there's a reason that we've done it, not just because we didn't like it. There's going to be a lot of comments you don't like, but there are certain reasons that we can remove comments. So currently right now, we have a town Facebook page that is managed by myself, Town Clerk Cathcart, and Beth Lamberson. We also have a Marshall Office Facebook page, a Parks and Rec Facebook page, a Senior Center Facebook page, and no Public Works Facebook page. So there are a number of Facebook pages out there, and I think this would be providing information to those managers of those Facebook pages and how we're managing those.
There's also an Instagram page for the town of Bayfield.
Yes, there's also an
All right, does the board have any other questions, comments? I think this is a good idea in this day and age. I'm happy for this update. And with that being said, I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
I would make a motion to approve resolution number 479.
I'll second the motion.
All right, any further comments from the board? Roll call.
Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee
I'm
Dallison.
sorry, on the form it says resolution 478.
Which one is it?
Oh,
Where is it to them?
it's 479. My apologies for that error. We'll correct.
fix that.
We'll correct the resolution document to say 479.
The motion is correct.
The motion is correct. Let's get a roll call again, please.
Okay, Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee Dallison.
Yes.
Trustee Joswick.
Yes.
Trustee Moreland.
Yes.
Trustee Politis.
Yes.
Trustee Cesaro.
Yes.
And Mayor Tarkington.
Yes.
All in favor?
All right, moving on to the discussion portion of the evening, the Marshall ordinance draft.
So in your packet, I provided the current, we have, in the last year, we modified the Public Works Department director, also modified the Finance Director Treasurer position, And when I was reviewing the positions, the last one we had was the town clerk. So in looking at that, it would be easier to modify the marshal and the town clerk, and then repeat the removal of officers and that Colorado revised statutes, just so that's repeated in there. I didn't reiterate the whole code, just that portion of it. This is for your discussion.
Anybody have any comments? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our noise ordinance draft.
So I was approached by Mayor Tarkington and elect Matt Salka, Commissioner-elect Salka, and the discussion was regarding a Jake break type of ordinance. In the communities that I've worked in, that's pretty typical to remove the Jake breaks being engaged in small communities, especially around residential areas. So you also had a noise ordinance, so I inserted that into the noise ordinance with the mufflers, and also added warning alarms because that's still part of the revised statutes. And these are just draft for your consideration or discussion before they go into an ordinance next meeting.
And from what I understand from Commissioner Salka,
Where I live, I am all for an ordinance rider to the county ordinance would require a Jake break discontinuance or no use in the town. I mean, certainly, I know everybody in town can hear when a truck is hitting the Jake break coming in and stop.
The only problem I see with this is that we can't adopt it tonight.
right, I was saying I spoke to Commissioner Salka, and we will be getting some assist on signage at the east and west ends of our town, so that'll be nice to have a warning for our truckers before they hit the town.
And the only thing I see is, I know Trustee Allison and I have been around this topic before, and enforcing it, how do you enforce it when somebody does it, out on 160? But, I do see some of the other ones that are just noisy vehicles around town, mufflers and exhaust and that kind of stuff. So, great. I just hope we're able to enforce it.
Agreed. All right, any other discussion on this topic? All right, moving on to the Pine River Shares Farm. Katie.
So Pam from Pine River Shares and her board sent me a very beautiful package about farm to table and a number of activities that they would like to do on the town-owned property. And I felt it was important really for the Pine River Shares to address the farm, the property, versus all the production and Feeding America and basically that all those other benefits. Because in the past, where I've been involved with using public property for these types of community gardens or public farms, you have to kind of take a lot of small steps. So you have only 2 pages, basically outlining what they would like to do with the property, the farm, that we're going to call it for right now. And I would really kind of like to get your input as to how would you like to see this go forward. There's going to be quite a few steps. The most important thing is who's going to carry the liability insurance. Will volunteers be covered? If they have, they probably shouldn't have roosters if they're going to have chickens. If there's all kinds of things that you're going to deal with. Who's going to irrigate the property, and is there proper irrigating training for these volunteers? So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to have to go through. But I think the first step is the Board of Trustees interested in some of the items that she's outlined, and should we just keep taking small steps forward?
I mean, I'm personally,
See a plan, I see this, the proposal, the final plan, including what you said, Katie, with the liability and who's ultimately responsible if something does not go right, because I'm someone who reviews plans, and I review them for, accountability and for, what are the what ifs and if they're covered. So I agree, I'd like to see, a little bit more with the plan. But I think it's a great idea.
yeah, I'm with
I
you.
would agree, and one of the things that I always think of is whose liability. Surely with, Parks and Rec, we have like killer liability insurance for people getting injured during games and that kind of stuff. So I would hope that we'd be able to transfer that or transition that.
Well, so you want to be very careful with looking at the town's insurance to cover this, because we would not necessarily be the direct coordinator of the volunteers. So that's why I'm looking at a lot of small steps forward. Are they looking at, and the other typical or the other similar programs I've been involved with, it starts out with 5, champions that want to take this on. Before you know it, I have 25, 30, 40 volunteers that want access, that believe that they've invested their time, their effort, their money into this place, and before you know it, they own it. Taking small steps, liability insurance, looking at who would do that would probably be maybe not the next step, but probably the third or fourth step, because these are things they're going to have to think out. But yes, we do have insurance for our own operations, but I'd be very careful in assuming it's just an automatic coverage for a farm, the farm provided by another organization and managed by another organization.
One of the things we might want to look into is how the library does their little
The gardens,
area,
yeah.
because it sounds like this is a bigger scale to that, but very similar on some levels, so we might want to look to see how they've got theirs set up to help us navigate it a little bit. But I love this idea. I definitely think we need to put a time limit on it. We don't want to tie up the land if it doesn't work, or if they didn't get the volunteers, or if they couldn't get it off the ground. We don't want to hang ourselves out too long on something like that. But I think the notion of it is fantastic. I think we would have lots of people in our community very interested in doing it, especially like people like me that live on a postage stamp with a branch.
So what would your timeline would be like 18 to 24 months, or would it be, what would your timeline be?
Well, I think I would want to see what they put together as far as how they figure the building of it goes, and how long they think it will take them to be successful. I don't want to cut them off and they were like, well, that plant takes 2 years before it produces, or, I don't know, I just told you so. But, I would want to go with what their plans are, or where they come to that fruition before I make that determination.
Katie, I just want a point of clarification. I'm not assuming that the town would be responsible for liability for the volunteers. I actually manage the Southwest Colorado Medical Reserve Corps, so I understand liability for volunteers. And so I don't know if there's an organization that would cover that for them. But, I'm not saying it's something that the town would have to take on unless we are offering that to these volunteers. I'm sure there's, other avenues to cover that so they can be self-sustaining, without us having to be, involved in that.
I see Andrew on there. Andrew, is there anything you want to add about the vision or what we're talking about here? If I put you on the spot.
Hi guys, Dan Studio here, like the one you just tried. Been a resident for 6 years, done a lot of community gardens. I managed the library garden for 5 years, just recently stepped down. But a lot of passionate people behind the chairs. We've been working on this one program for the past about 4 years. Lots of grants, lots of money, lots of planning. The whole thing is to build a sustainable food shed here in Pine River Valley. I don't know if you know, but Pine River Shed is going from serving about 700 people to over 2,300 this year, or last year. So we're just looking to grow food for people. We want to feed people. We want to feed our community. And we want to take the steps that we need to do to get there. And this is a wonderful opportunity. I myself am very excited, and I think it has a lot of potential. I've walked the property, I've seen it, and I can just vision, a lot of permaculture, a lot of water sequestration, a lot of composting. We want to do chickens, goats. There's some heritage apple trees out there that we want to get pruned up this spring. So those will start to produce. An excellent job pruning apple trees. We also have Bayfield. And it's good to know the press cider that we can do with this property. We've already contacted the Montezuma Horse Restoration Project. Adding through that sheds, giving more trees, plants, and they just give them to us as long as we take care of them. It needs water, it needs some fencing. We already have very smart Peterson, they're going to come out with some benefits. We have growing spaces actually at content, growing spaces on the coast of the grow homes. So we already kind of have meetings scheduled with them 2 weeks out. Hopefully put a 42-foot grow dome on there that we can grow year round. And a grow dome will probably produce food for 30, 40, 50 families, depending on how well you manage it. So, and that's fresh, organic, local produce that would grow like 100 feet from the dome to 500 chairs. So it's all exciting. People, some volunteers, some passionate people, but I think, here in this town, we do have all those people. So, we're looking in the grants, we're looking in the money, we're looking in the funding, we're looking in the support. So, yeah, I think it has a lot of potential. I do agree that we need a plan. And I'm actually trying to start to draw out some plans and ideas as far as like the landscaping, trees, and the permaculture ideas I have. And it's not just all me. We're all going to kind of do this plan together, and it's going to be working for the course of the past 4 years. I'm just really excited for us to break some soil. So, start some cover crops and do some composting. I think composting is one thing that the town really needs to look into. It will farm composting doing out of the window. Composting lots of organic waste. And we can get it in the schools, get it over there on the property, and make some compost. When it comes to gardening and growing, it's all about the soil. I know that was a lot.
Thank you, Andrew.
So the other thing that you need to be aware of as a board is that basically this is a benefit to irrigate this property is actually a benefit for your water share case that you have going on right now. But what we have been asking for is a map of the Pine River Shares idea what they're going to irrigate, because without that, I'm still not able to share that with our engineers. So Andrew, if that's something you can help with, that would be very beneficial.
Yeah, I love this idea. I think this would be a great addition to our town. I would love to see and figure out how this can work for everyone. So.
All right. So what I'm not looking for any decision tonight. What I'm looking for is just kind of the discussion to where we need to go from here, what the next steps would be. I'm excited to see this move forward, and we'll hear this as we start working on each step at a time.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, moving on to board reports. Anybody have anything to add? Nobody? No board reports?
Mostly what we've been doing with planning commission doesn't come through. So we also worked on a little mini subdivision of the property over in Bayfield Center. That's about it. The RV stuff has come through too. That's a big excitement.
Trustee Dallison and I had a conversation this weekend about everything that our Upper Pine Fire Department is doing as far as vaccinations, testing. I think they have gone above and beyond for our town and the whole county, honestly, in what they're doing. So I reached out to Bruce Evans and I gave him a thank you on behalf of the town. Just wanted everybody to know. And he was gracious and invited any of us if we want to ever take a tour or come see the vaccination clinics. We just got to hit him up and let him know we're coming. But I wanted to just let everybody know I sent that out on behalf of the town.
Thank you for doing that.
Anybody else have anything to say? Add? If not, I will adjourn this meeting. It is 7:54. Alrighty then.